Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I am super thrilled to be speaking with Royal Ballet first soloist Beatriz Stix-Brunell ahead of World Ballet Day on 2nd of October. Now, I have to say, can't wait for World Ballet Day. We're so looking forward to watching over 20 hours of live behind-the-scenes footage from 5 of the top ballet companies, including, of course, the Royal Ballet, the Bolshoi, the Australian Ballet, and many other guest companies. So, hi, Beatriz. It's so lovely to have you on the show.
Hi, Savannah. Thank you so much for having me.
So, World Ballet Day is only a couple of days away. So, first of all, tell us about how you're involved.
So, for our World Ballet Day, we will be doing our class, which we've been a part of ever since the very first World Ballet Day. We've always done our daily ballet class, taught by a different teacher each time. And I will be part of a live interview, which I'm really looking forward to. And then throughout the rest of the day, you'll see kind of what we do on a daily basis. So I think there will be a lot of different rehearsals for us throughout the day. And so it's going to be rep that will be performing on our main stage, both our main stage and our new beautiful up and coming Linbury Theater, which is completely redone, and it's absolutely amazing. So you'll see some of the pieces that will be performed there in, I think, January and February. So that should be super exciting.
That was definitely exciting. I think there's, everyone is waiting to catch a performance in the new space. You mentioned there the sort of typical day at the Opera House. Tell us about your typical day with the Royal Ballet.
So our typical day usually starts, class is at 10:30 in the morning, but I usually get there early so I can do a bit of warm-up and maybe a bit of gyrotonics before class to get my body kind of rolling and to get my day started on the right foot. And then, so we have our company class from 10:30 to 11:45. And that's kind of, as you'll see on World Ballet Day, that's our daily ritual. That's a daily, dancer's daily routine. And it's kind of not just a physical prep for our day, but it's also the mental prep as well. So, you can wake up feeling really, really good and feel quite good in class, or you can wake up feeling really sore and things are not going as well as you'd hoped, but class is there specifically to kind of refocus your body and get it really nice and warm for a difficult day of rehearsals. So we usually have that from 10:30 to 11:45, and then on a day where we don't have a show, we'll be rehearsing from 12 until 6:30, and we can be, depending on the rep, we can be rehearsing, 4 different ballets in a day.
Wow.
Completely different ballets. It can be Ashton, it can be Macmillan, it can be McGregor, Wheeldon, Scarlett. I mean, you name it, and we'll be kind of transferring from one style of dance to another throughout the day, which is, why class is so important, so that it gets your body ready for anything that gets thrown at you. And if we have a performance, we finish rehearsal at 5:30. So we have a bit of a break, time to regroup and have something to eat, do hair and makeup, and re-warm up for a 7:30 show.
And
then all through, it's quite a busy schedule. And then all throughout the day, I mean, you'll usually find people, if they have a break here and there, they'll usually be either in the Pilates studio or in the gym or getting some physio or any treatment they need done. So we're usually quite busy.
You mentioned there, the times when you wake up and your body's sore, obviously these very long days, long weeks. As much as you love it, as you say, the body can get sore. How do you stay motivated on those days where you wake up and things aren't going right, or your body's feeling a little bit resistant perhaps?
Yeah, resistance is quite a good word, actually, because, it's if your body's feeling sore or exhausted, it will literally, it will resist you you can think, all right, I'm going to try to, get this leg here, and it's not going to go. So on those days, I mean, I think it's really important to be just accepting of of the state of your body and not fight it, not get upset or frustrated when things aren't going 100%. But I think motivation wise, that right when you walk into work, and right when I walk into that opera house, my day is going to be packed with really exciting things. It can be a new work. It can be, revisiting a role that I'm trying to kind of, change in different ways, or it can be not a new work, but a new role that I'm tackling. So regardless of how my body's feeling, I know that when I get into the studio, I will be fulfilled in some respect, even if it's not, even if my body is not 100% mentally, it's exciting. The challenge is exciting. So, I think that's the main motivation. And that as soon as you get going, regardless of whether you feel great or not in the morning, once you get going and once you get into that routine, the body just starts rolling, and you fall into place.
You also mentioned the different choreographers that you can either work with, or their work that you will be rehearsing throughout the day, and how, of course, they're all very different. They're also very incredible artists themselves, of course. But for your body and for you mentally, having to rehearse such a wide rep in one day, how does that feel on the body, and how does that feel sort of mentally and emotionally, sort of transitioning up, between those different works and those different roles?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So I think physically, in order for your body to be prepared to switch from, going from something like Swan Lake, which when you're in a tutu, to then going to, a ballet like Untouchables by Hoffa Schechter, which is in socks, that's exactly the type of day that we would have. For the body to just kind of remain at its peak performance ability and to handle the stresses that that kind of come with any choreographic shift or shifting from one extreme to another. That's where all of us are very tuned into our healthcare suite. And that's, the cross-training aspect of things, which is what, whether you do gyrotonics or Pilates or gym work. Because when you're dancing all day, you're obviously working your body out. However, there are a lot of little muscles that start to get neglected. And those are exactly the muscles that will go, or that will, get strained or could get injured if they're not as strong as they can be. So that's where you have to kind of maintain your fitness, your all around fitness, just so that, you're ready to do an extreme arabesque or an extreme leg kick or an extreme back bend in one ballet, and then have to kind of switch it up and be a lot more placed and a lot more squared and have your core ready to kind of to act on anything. So that's where we're all, we have incredible facilities at the Opera House, which you can see a lot of our dancers show on their, social media accounts. You can see what an amazing team that we have to help us kind of stay fit for anything. So that's the physical aspect of it. The mental aspect of it, obviously changing from, from a huge percussive Middle Eastern score, for example, from Hofesh, to then changing to, a violin and piano in something like Swan Lake. That's just fulfilling in itself to hear melodically. I mean, as a dancer, you go from one surround sound system, when you're kind of rolling around on the floor and getting very grounded. And then you get the opportunity to put a tutu on and then go to and a point shoe and go to a completely different level in your head and in your body. And that in itself is just, is kind of what you dance for, really.
And I guess that's what all of your years of training, as you say, and also that physical health care and the emotional health care, which is far more prevalent these days, and the dance industry, particularly companies like the Royal Ballet, taking sort of a holistic approach to looking after dancers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've had, you know, quite a solid base of training, of course, to get you to the Royal Ballet. I mean,
Yes.
looking back into your own career and your own journey, you started at the American Ballet School, but also trained with the Paris Opera Ballet School.
I did.
Tell us about those experiences and sort of how that have helped shape you as a dancer.
So, so I started, well, first of all, I started in a lot of sports actually, because I have an older brother and I have a lot of male cousins. So I was kind of a tomboy and did all the sports that they did, you know, whether it was gymnastics, diving, tennis. And then, that was the one that really, stuck for me because it was, it came from, I mean, gymnastics. The teacher said, you know, that I should try a ballet class to help along with gymnastics. And then ballet, really, I just loved the fact that the movement was accompanied by beautiful music. So that really combined two wonderful things for me, movement and music. And so I started at the School of American Ballet for 5 years. And that's where I started performing in all of the children's ballets with New York City Ballet, all of Balanchine's children's ballets. So I was on stage at a very young age, and that's where I kind of found my home, really, with being on stage. That was my place of total happiness. And I think having that experience when you're young is also a really wonderful thing because you start to feel comfortable and it's not it doesn't feel like a big worry or a big scare because you're constantly on stage and performing for a large audience. And you know, I remember one of the first ballets that I did was Harlequinade, and I had this beautiful costume on by Karinska, and I had a feather in my hair, and that curtain went up, and you know, I felt this amazing breeze come out from the audience. And that's just, you know, when I think back about, you know, my training and stuff to now, it's like you get the same feeling, whether you're 7 years old or whether, you know, you're 25 like I am now. I get that same feeling when the curtain goes up. And I think that's a really special thing, you know, because that journey you've had the journey, and that journey is just going to keep on going until you stop. So that was where I found my complete passion and love for performance. And then I decided to kind of change it up, and I auditioned for Paris Opera Ballet School. And I was really intrigued by dance in Europe, and I had a wonderful experience there. I totally, I loved the whole system. The school was wonderful. I had a great teacher, Elisabeth Morin, who had just retired as an étoile. So we were her first class. We were her first class. And you know, it was a big deal. I was 12 years old, and I didn't speak a word of French.
Wow.
That year brought me so many wonderful things that didn't just involve dance, you know. It brought me a new language, a new culture, and a lot of wonderful friendships as well, because, you know, you're with each other, you know, all the time in the school. And I got to perform there with the company. I got to perform Dyer with Paris Opera Ballet, and then we had our performances, our school performances, where I did a beautiful ballet, an old ballet by Serge Lefar called Entre deux rondes, where we were kind of dressed up as Degas dancers, and I had, again, you know, just this beautiful light yellow silk bodice with a beautiful tutu and a little black neck choker, and I just felt like I was in a completely different world. You know, we were all supposed to be museum in the Louvre Museum, and all those experiences, you know, performing at the Opéra Garnier was unbelievable. And so that whole year brought me, again, another layer of a different world to my dance education. which really excited me. So I took away a lot of wonderful things from that.
It's interesting because making such a move at 12 to the other side of side of the world, new language, new school, new culture, really sort of led you almost to Europe by the sounds of it. I mean, you went back home after your time with the Paris Opera Ballet School. Is that right?
I did, yeah.
And you trained with Fabrice.
I did, yeah, that's correct. So after that, so if I was going to stay, I was going to have to stay alone without any family because they had to go back to the States. And I was really young and I didn't want to stay, alone.
Yeah.
Because it's, quite far away from home.
Very young.
It's very young.
Yeah.
And I was also missing my, academics have always been a really important part of my life and in my family. So I was missing the academic rigor that I was getting from my regular academic school at home. So I came back to my academic school and all my friends there, and then I would continue with my French training with Fabrice Herold in the afternoons. So it was a really good balance for me.
And then you ended up joining the Royal Ballet. What inspired you to obviously, move again to London, but to join the Royal Ballet, aside from it obviously being, one of the, top ballet companies in the world, but was there anything particularly special that drew you to the company?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, my old teacher Fabrice had an incredible dance film collection, and he began showing me all of these older videos of the Royal Ballet. And I remember seeing a video with Anthony Dowell, for example, which completely captivated me. Completely captivated me. And the quality of the dancing was just phenomenal. And even though he's a man, and that's still just, even though that was the first taste that I got of the Royal Ballet, and that I was completely blown away. And I knew that was the standard of dance and the quality and the history that I wanted for my professional life. So my journey to the Royal Ballet actually was, before I joined the company, I worked with Christopher Wheeldon.
Yeah.
I joined his company when I was 14. And
that's very young, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that was quite young. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was young, but it was also a really wonderful way of, I got to meet all of these incredible principals from all over the world, two of which were actually Edward Watson and Leanne Benjamin.
Wow.
Who, when I joined the company, they became my colleagues, and it was like coming home almost to them, because it was, that was a wonderful thing. But, all these principals from around the world, and also working, kind of adapting to new choreography, being created on by Christopher Wheeldon, and experiencing, obviously it wasn't a big company, but it was company life, because we would tour and we would travel, and they really took care of me. All the dancers really took care of me wonderfully. And that was a great feeling. I already had that feeling of community. And I remember we came on tour to London. We were performing at Sadler's Wells, and Leanne Benjamin took me to take class at the Royal Ballet, to take company class. And I remember that class as if it were yesterday.
Really?
I remember walking in to the studio, to the beautiful studio, which is our Ashton studio. Well, all of our studios are beautiful, but the Ashton studio is I think one of everyone's favorites, because it has that a beautiful skylight, and the class was packed with people who I obviously were complete strangers to me, but everyone was, even then, at that point I was 15. They were so welcoming. They were so warm, so lovely. And I remember Monica Mason was in the corner of watching class from outside, just because she had been passing through, and I just remember being completely blown away, not only by the beauty of the facilities, but the nature of the company, really. And I knew that this was where I wanted to be, no question. So yeah, that was just a wonderful experience there.
It sounds like, you found your family, but it must have been, were you nervous or intimidated, sort of, walking into this, the Royal Ballet Company class at the age of 15?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's you don't know what to expect, really. It's like that, any time when you're that young and you take a class with a company of such high esteem, and walking into a room, it can be very, very intimidating. But what was so wonderful was that the second you start talking to people and you see what everyone is about, it made it so it was felt very natural, very, very natural, because of the sense between all the dancers. And that's an important thing, when you're in a company, is that camaraderie and that atmosphere, that environment, that you feel welcome every day. And that's what I noticed from the company.
Which is so lovely to hear, with such authenticity about this, wonderful, warm welcome and family-like and, caring environment, because often that's quite different to what, sort of, shows sort of, perpetrate this myth of, all this constant, in the studio, fighting and infighting and all the rest of it.
Right.
Which is, it's not necessarily reality, is it?
No, exactly. And that's one of the wonderful things about World Ballet Day, for example. You get to, I think a lot of people have a certain idea of ballet in general, because they come to see a performance and they see the final product, but they don't necessarily, they never really get to see what goes on behind closed doors. So obviously, any intense profession and sport is competitive, because that's the nature of the game. That's the nature of any game.
Yeah.
But it is not. It's definitely not. What people perceive it to be, and I think because no one really gets to see the backstage of it, it seems a little bit inaccessible. So they think it's super cutthroat across the board, but in reality, it's an extremely fun and nourishing environment. And that's the great thing that you see through World Ballet Day. It gives you access into our lives and into our families, because that's really what they are. Whether you're in Australia, whether you're in London, whether you're in the States, whether you're in Asia, no matter what, you're in the ballet company, that is your family, because that's where you spend all your time. And that's one of the things that I love about World Ballet Day is the chance to kind of break that barrier between viewer and dancer, or between audience and performer. And it shows you kind of what we train for every single day.
I agree. I think, being able to see artists as people, as humans,
Exactly.
And be able to sort of strip away the beautiful makeup and the gorgeous tutus and, the pristine point shoes, and actually see the hard work, the dedication, but also, see the dancers, see you having some fun as well, amongst all of that hard work.
Yeah, the interactions between the dancers, I find that's one of the most exciting and fun things to see. Not just my own interactions with my fellow dancers, but also, you see it in other companies as well. And it's kind of it's a support system, and with a profession that is so difficult like dance, mentally and physically, so strenuous. It's a really wonderful thing to see people, being able to laugh and to really enjoy their days, to enjoy this art form, and you see the struggles of it, and you see the difficulties of it, but you also see the other side, which is the family side of it.
And with, potentially, millions of people tuning in on World Ballet Day, does it give you a sense of like that you're on stage, or, do you feel a bit of extra pressure, or do you just, go through your day as normal?
We just go through our day as normal, actually, because at the Opera House, we often have, people coming in tours to watch, and we're performing all the time. So that's just part of our everyday. But when, you're in the studio and you have all the cameras on, on the class or on the rehearsal, it makes you very proud, because it kind of, the world now is very, it's digital, and people can binge watch shows on Netflix or Amazon, and that's exactly what they're doing with us, with dance. They have a day of binge watching dance, and it's like watching a TV show, basically, all, on your computer or on your phone or your iPad. And that's a very cool idea to grasp as a dancer, because, we're not movie stars, we're not celebrities, we're not any of that, and we're not, you have huge football stars or huge, tennis stars. What we do is very behind the scenes. So for this to happen is a wonderful push forward, I think, for our art form. And I think the Royal Opera House is very good at kind of pushing dance forward into the new age, and getting an honest view, an exciting view of what we do. So I think that's as a dancer on World Ballet Day, it's a great aspect of the day. And I remember my very first World Ballet Day, I was doing a rehearsal for Alice in Wonderland, I think. And the very next day, so I think we had rehearsal on the Friday, World Ballet Day was on the Friday, and then that next day, on Saturday matinee, was my debut in Alice. So it was like 2 days of just, it was like the World Ballet Day was my little prep for my debut the next day, and
like a warm-up performance for your debut performance.
It was like a stage warm-up for my debut performance. And I remember, at the very end of the rehearsal, Chris and Jackie, who were taking the rehearsal, we were working on quite a difficult step from one of the solos, and it was a step that always felt kind of hit or miss, and I fell over a few times, and then I ended up getting it. I found the feeling, and I found the step, and I remember Chris said, "All right, 3 of those tomorrow, please. Do those perfectly, and then we're good." And I thought, okay, there it is. That's that's exactly what we do.
That's real life.
People saw the journey. People saw the journey of not getting it, and then getting it, knowing what the final result should be, and then knowing that that's what I had to do in my show the next day. And I love that. I love that backstage process that people get to see.
Absolutely. And tell us about the feeling of your debut performance in the principal role in Alice in Wonderland.
Oh my goodness, that was pretty amazing. I was 19 at the time, and it was my first principal role with the company. And Alice is, it's a very, very big role to tackle, not just technically, but also, mentally as well, because you have to be a character. You have to really inhabit that character for 3 hours, and Alice is on stage for a lot of the time. It's the ballet's about her, so she's on stage for most of the time. So that it was a huge responsibility, and it was a big day for me. And I can remember being on stage with the support. I could feel the support all around from all of my colleagues from beginning to end of the show. And that's a feeling that you never forget. You can't really capture it in a bottle. You can't explain it as you can articulate it as well as you'd like, because when you're performing, it's not just about you. It's filled with looks from the other characters, and contact with your partners, and and with everybody on that stage, it's your interaction with all of them. And that is what I'm so proud of in this company. And that is what one of the things that I think our company is known for, as well as obviously the physical quality and the standard of dance, but also the standard of the tradition of acting in this company.
The artistry.
In that artistry, in that acting tradition, from the principal dancer to the newest member of the company. You get that history from watching the older company members and the people who have done the ballets before, and the staff at the front of the room. They care just as much about how you point your foot as how you react to someone when they're telling a story, or how you act when you're telling a story. And that all-encompassing idea, I think, is what creates the Royal Ballet. So,
and I think from an audience perspective, when you're in the Royal Opera House or wherever the Royal Ballet is performing when they're on tour, for example, but particularly in the Opera House in London, you can feel that as an audience member, exactly as you're saying there, not just technique, but the artistry and the acting being as equally as important. And you really do feel it. You really, really do. Even when you are in the cheap seats at the, £19 or the £5 standing ones, you can still feel it that high up, which is quite amazing. I mean, you talked there about, some of the newest members in the company. You've risen through the ranks from artist to soloist to first soloist. How has that journey with this, as you say, wonderfully supportive company that you've described? And I have to say, in sort of, the day and age and, the things that the dance industry is facing, it is so wonderful to hear such a positive description of company culture. But tell us about your own sort of that journey through the company, and you're only 25, so your journey is, goodness me, there's still so much of it to go.
I remember my very first day in the company. Actually, I remember my very first class in the company as a member, and my very first rehearsals.
Tell us about those.
So one of the first rehearsals was that season. We were starting with, I think, Sylvia, we started with Onegin, and then we were also rehearsing Sylvia. Those were some of the rehearsals I had my very first few days, and which are completely different ballets. So most of the dancers had done both of those ballets before. So I was really learning things from scratch. And I remember one of my first rehearsals of Sylvia, I think someone was injured and I was covering that spot. So I had to go in with, having, when you first join a company, you never really know how things work. You don't know the ins and outs of rehearsal life and how rehearsals are taken and how they work. But all of a sudden I found out that I had to go in after having watched whatever, I think we were doing the spring couples, and it was, that can be very intimidating because there were only 4 girls dancing, and I had to go in and kind of show my stuff somehow, and not really knowing the choreography because you're just getting a feel for things and everyone else knows it. And that was, the first example of people taking care of each other, really.
Yeah.
Because all the girls that I was dancing with helped me all throughout the rehearsal. They were telling me where to go, or if I was on the wrong leg, or they were just incredibly supportive. And that's the type of energy that gives you energy, that gives you that feeling of being able to dance without having any inhibitions. And if you go wrong, you go wrong, but no one will judge you. No one will, they'll just help you out. And that challenge of kind of having to stay on your toes in case anyone went off, that's something that lasts throughout your whole career. I mean, you kind of have to be ready for anything in this career, but especially, you know, when you first join a company, you have to be ready to go in any spot, really. So that little challenge, that always having to kind of know your stuff, that really excited me. So I love that little pressure of you know, if I had to fill in for someone last minute, I really got excited by, you know, the fact that I had to really be on my best foot, and I had to know what I was doing and be prepared. And that's the type of thing that just prepares you for anything, really, because it's quite daunting to have to go on last minute, you know, in a performance, not just a rehearsal, but in a performance. So I remember that day very, very well. And then I remember switching to Onegin, which is it's a beautiful story ballet. And that was where I saw the storytelling in the company.
And sorry, no, continue. I was just going to ask you another question, but I want to sort of hear you talk more about this beautiful ballet.
Oh yeah, so I remember the first scene that we were working on was a dream scene. Onegin is thinking about Tatiana and all of these. It's kind of in the ballroom scene, and all of these. He's passing these women all through his hands, and he has to be not really even paying attention to them. They're almost like spirits kind of floating around him, but he's really thinking about Tatiana. And I noticed all of the women, how they had changed, because before that we have a ballroom dance that's very it's like a processional almost. It's everyone's in their place, and it's very formal, and it's like a waltz, and you have to really, you know, be very strict with what you're doing and the way you hold yourself with your man. And then what really struck me was the beautiful difference that I saw with the women, from how they changed from that formal, almost regimental feel to then turning into those spirits floating around Onegin. And I don't know why, but I was one of those people, and I learned a lot from that. You know, I learned a lot from that quick change, and from kind of, you see how the whole energy of a room shifts depending on what you're dancing and what scene it is and what the feel is. I loved seeing that very quick shift from everybody in the company and being a part of that. That stuck for me. And that's the type of feeling that has lasted every day, you know, every day.
And thinking of that feeling, like, what is it that you love the most about dancing? If you could choose.
Yeah, that's a hard question, obviously, because there are so many aspects to dance. But I think being in this company, one of the things that has that always actually, it makes me quite emotional. When I think about it, and even being on stage, is that feeling of never feeling more alive than you are in any given moment on stage with everyone around you. It's a real spark that happens in your body, and all of your synapses, that, you know, all of your nerves, every part of you is so alert and so alive. And especially when you have to inhabit another character. One of the things that I love is that the steps somehow make more sense. You know, for example, in Macmillan Ballet, the pure genius of showing emotion and showing real character and showing real relationships through steps. You know, it comes to life, and it makes everything, whether it's a transition step or a pirouette or a balance, you find a story in all of those steps when you're performing these roles and when you're inhabiting another character. And it makes, you know, the technique of it, or the technique of whatever you're dancing, it almost makes everything feel easier in a way, even though it's not easy and it's extremely difficult. But when you have to tell that story, that mix of whatever's in your heart having to come out through your own movement and through the music, it makes it all come together at the same time. And you have people reacting to you, and you have to react to people in live time. And that's something that never, ever, ever will get old, I think. That will never get old.
I can imagine. And you mentioned, some wonderful ballets and some wonderful roles and some incredible creators. Do you have a favorite role or roles, and why?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Obviously Alice will always hold a very special place in my heart, because that was one of the first roles that I did. But shortly after that, I performed very last minute, actually. I stepped into the principal role of Prince of the Pagoda, that's Princess Rose, with very, very little time to rehearse. And it was a 3-act ballet, and a very difficult one as well.
Yeah.
That was it's a Macmillan ballet, and it hadn't been brought back to the company in a very long time. They hadn't performed it. And I hadn't been to that many rehearsals, because I was covering the role, but I was always double booked. So I didn't have that many chances to get to rehearsal. But I found out quite late that I was going to be performing it, and I only had about 3 weeks to prepare before my debut. And I remember being coached one-on-one by Monica Mason on Jubilee Day, actually. No one was in, but she came in especially to rehearse me, because it was going to be, we had such a short amount of time, and we spent a nice hour and a half in the studio, with just amazing coaching and one-on-one time, and delving into the role technically, and of course also artistically, character-wise. And also my partner at the time for that ballet was Ryoichi Hirano, who was also stepping in at the last minute because of an injury. Someone else had an injury. And I was so well taken care of. I will never forget that. And we've danced together a lot since then. But I knew that even if I didn't know the steps, for example, he would be there for me no matter what. And he was so gracious, such a gracious partner, and such a wonderful energy to have in the studio. And I will never forget that. I will never forget that experience. And that all, came together on stage. And I remember being on stage and, doing a variation and having my friends on the sidelines. They were watching me and in support of me. And they were so they would smile at me if I walked past them, in the variation. And those are little moments that, that you just don't forget. So that was definitely a highlight for me. Also, Sugar Plum Fairy, which I debuted 2 years ago, actually, which is like, the quintessential tutu classical role. It's like a gem in the Royal Ballet crown as well. And I had seen so many Sugar Plums, from when I first joined the company. So many beautiful, beautiful Sugar Plums and beautifully executed Sugar Plums. So, you think about how difficult it is, even though it looks quite simple. Yeah. But it's a very, it's notorious for stamina-wise, and just, you have to be this very pristine. It reminds me of glass almost, that role. It's just because it is so delicate and so pure and so clean and clear cut. But at the same time, you have to have that wonderful power within you to execute it. You have to have that steely footwork. And so that was my first time working on such a quintessential classical role in the studio. And our coach was, he's our current rehearsal director, is Christopher Saunders. And Darcy Bustle was actually coaching me as well for that.
Oh, wonderful.
So I had a wonderful team with me in there. And I just, between the two of them, because, Darcy she performed the role. So of course she knew the ins and outs of it, whether it be for how you portray the Sugar Plum Fairy, or how you step onto point in this one section, or you know, how you hold your head or hold your arm, or she was so invested in those details, which, you know, when you think about it, that really is what makes the piece. And then we had Christopher Saunders, who's not only a wonderful coach in terms of all those things that I just described, but also partnering wise, he was an incredible partner. So he was also instrumental in helping, you know, Nicole Edmonds and I, who was my partner, kind of get the pas de deux all gelled and smooth. And, you know, I remember if anything wasn't working, he would kind of step in and show Nicole little tricks, or how things what would make the line look better, or why something wasn't working. And I remember him partnering me, and it was always just so secure. And I thought, wow, you know, this is just literally, you know, hand me down information that is, that's exactly what you do this for, you know, to be in the studio with a team like that, and to be getting firsthand information from people who have done these roles. And it was just a perfect journey for me. And not only that, but Chris Saunders and Darcy they had been in the company together, and they had all these old stories and all these old inside jokes. And it was just really fun to be in the studio with them, because it was very lighthearted. You know, the process was obviously, it's hard. You know, getting a role on like that is very difficult, but they made it such fun to be in the studio. We would have laughs and laughs and laughs, and they would, you know, show things together. He would partner her, and she would hold a balance, and they would laugh about it because she still got it. And it was just a wonderful experience. So, yeah.
That does sound quite like wonderful, but also so fascinating to listen to, telling and retelling those stories from the moments, those very special moments. So World Ballet Day comes ahead of. Oh no, go on, please.
Oh, sorry, just one more, and then one more. Just I remember this experience was phenomenal for all of us. Was being involved in Hofesh Schechter's Untouchables.
Oh yes, please talk about that, because he's one of my favorite choreographers, and it's one of my favorite pieces.
It's we revisited that last season actually, and you know, that was the ballet that was, everyone was stripped of rank. Really, we went in there knowing that this was a group piece, and it was going to be a massive army of strong dancers across the board, that we were all going to have to work together and feel each other. You know, it wasn't about you. It wasn't about how you were. Obviously, you know, you have to execute the steps, but it was about the connection between all of us, the gel between all of us. And I think one of the most fascinating things was, before Hofesh even started creating, we workshopped with him for a bit, where we had to we were in socks, so we had to learn his style. We had to completely relearn dance in a way. We had to learn a completely different style. And we had to get very grounded, very low to the floor. Everything was in parallel, and the total opposite of what we've been, you know, you're taught as a dancer. We had to hunch our backs and be, you know, turned in and very low to the ground and rolling around. And, you know, it had to be a seamless, liquid, almost like taffy-like feeling in our bodies, you know, to get even from the floor to standing. It was so not straightforward, you know. It had to look completely seamless. And I remember watching Hofesh, and all of us watching Hofesh and his some of his dancers who were there helping. We were in awe, completely in awe by the movement of these dancers. And he would explain to us what he wanted, and then we would try it, and we would see it on him, and then we would try it ourselves, and it just wasn't, at the beginning it wasn't working because it was still so foreign to our bodies. Yeah. And, but slowly but surely, and we all saw this, and the dancers that we went in as were completely different to the dancers that we came out as. I mean, wow. We literally watched each other turn into a Hofesh dancer, and that was one of the most incredible things to witness, not only to experience because I was in the piece, but also to see my friends performing and even just rehearsing like rock stars. I mean, it was unbelievable, to this amazing percussive Middle Eastern music that Hofesh had created himself. And we turned into, it was like a school of fish, really. Anywhere one person went, we all followed. And we learned to really listen to each other without talking, obviously. We learned to look and listen with our bodies in a very different way. And that's an experience and a product that I will always be, so proud to have seen and to have been a part of,
And
very grateful.
I saw that at the Opera House, and I still remember.
Oh, you did?
Oh, of course. And I still remember, because not only, as I say, I love his work so much, and of course his dances, but to see his work on the Royal Ballet and on your bodies was quite an experience to even watch it, and you could really sense that you, as a company, you really somehow emotionally really became to understand the movement and really enjoyed it on almost some sort of very deep level there. And it obviously requires so much of you physically and emotionally, but it just seemed it was so unbelievably powerful. I'll never forget it. It was amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
So speaking of roles, the World Ballet Day comes ahead of the your new season. What are you dancing coming up over the next season?
So so far not that much has come out in terms of casting for the whole season, but right now I'm working on Mitzi Casper in Meyerling, which I performed 2 seasons ago, which is she is kind of the lead, Rudolph Meyerling's lead mistress in Act 2. And she has this really beautiful, sensual solo that she does, which is it's slow and seductive. And then she changes the mood and she has this very, very fast, explosive dance. It's just one girl, which is her, and the 4 officers. And then Rudolph joins in as well a little bit. And it starts off with her in the middle and surrounded by all of her men. And she is kind of leading the pack with this great music. And this is one of my favorite roles, actually, that I've done, is Mitzi Casper. So I'm really looking forward to revisiting that, actually. I had a rehearsal a few days ago with all my 4 men. It was one of our first rehearsals, and we just had a great time. It's very difficult partnering wise. The maneuvers are very difficult because it's one girl and 4 guys maneuvering you very quickly, at high speeds and tough footwork and arm work. But we had a great time, and so I'm really looking forward to revisiting that one. So I performed that at the end of October. And then we have Bayader coming up, in which we are, that's a big company ballet.
Yeah.
So, I'll be doing one of the 3 shades and the top pod action and a lot of different things in that, which is, Bayader is a classic. It's a wonderful one.
Absolutely.
I remember doing Bayader. We did it about 6 years ago in the company, actually, or 5 years ago. So, I'm a completely different dancer now and a different rank now. So it's just it's nice to revisit this ballet as like a different person. That's always a great thing. And then I'll be doing Sugar Plum Fairy again, which of course I'm looking forward to. And I'll also be revisiting The 2 Pigeons.
Oh, lovely.
Which we did about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, which I absolutely love. It's my first principal role in Ashton Ballet. And I worked on that with one of our ballet masters, or our repetitors, Christopher Carr, who, the ballet hadn't been done here in ages, and he completely he restaged this ballet from zero, basically. He did an incredible job putting this ballet on, and it's such a fun, heartwarming
Yeah.
ballet.
Sweet.
That is also
Yeah.
very, it's very sweet, but also very serious at the same time. And that took me on I thoroughly enjoyed working on that ballet, because obviously I had always wanted to do, a principal role in an Ashton ballet, and I really got to inhabit that style, which it's steeped in Royal Ballet tradition and history. So I learned a lot from that, which is all very quick footwork, and it's quite a difficult role, But it took me on a really beautiful emotional journey as well, because she starts out as a little nuisance, quite a young girl who's bothering her love interest, and she's kind of a pain, really. She's and then you see her kind of transform from that into he wants her back at the end. He's in love with her, and he's the one that's very she becomes very vulnerable, and he leaves her for another person and then comes back and is very sorry, and to this beautiful music, and that was a wonderful little emotional journey that I remember really connecting with at the time. So I can't wait to perform that again. So that's coming up as well.
So you're only 25, as we've mentioned, and you're a first soloist, but you've been performing some principal roles already, and for quite some time, actually.
Yes.
But are there roles or that you obviously would love to dance in the future, or specific goals that you currently have that you're working towards for the future? Sort of what's your vision?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are a number of dream roles, of course. For example, Manon and Juliet, and those big those Macmillan ballets that are obviously they're coveted worldwide, and those are the prime examples of ballets where you properly get into that world when you're dancing on that choreography, and that's storytelling at its finest, I think, really. Shakespeare and Macmillan, I mean, you can't really go wrong with that.
Absolutely.
That's for Juliet, for example, and then something like Manon, a role like Manon, which I've covered. And last year I performed the role of Mistress, which is another one of my favorite roles, actually. So I got to learn Manon and perform the role of Mistress, which are two very, they're very different roles, dancing-wise, but also character-wise. So I got the two opposing experiences in that, which was just wonderful. And of course, ballets like Giselle and the quintessential classical roles, Giselle and Aurora, I'd love to do.
Yeah.
They're, which give you a different, a completely different vibe, obviously, as opposed to roles like Juliet or Manon, but equally as rewarding and equally as difficult, So.
Yeah, lots. Obviously, as you say, the coveted roles, the big roles that every ballerina, of course, dreams of dancing.
And many more, but exactly, it's exactly right.
My final question to you is, as you're only really in the middle of your career here, but what advice would you have for future ballerinas who are sort of listening to your experience of working in one of the finest companies in the world? Yeah. What advice do you have for them?
I think as when you're training and when you are looking up to these dancers, and you see dancers in companies, and you feel the daily grind of the difficulties of dance life, and you also see the products of the beauty of it all, and what you want, what the goal is. On a day-to-day basis how hard it is, right? Mm-hmm. That it's a physical process, it's a mental process, and it's very cutthroat. That, especially when you're training and everyone wants to get into a company.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things that sometimes people forget is to remember to never get too serious about yourself. Obviously, be serious about what you do, but the moment you lose any of your sense of humor or your sense of lightheartedness or the reason why you do what you do, then that's where things can get a bit cloudy, because the day-to-day struggles they're hard. Yeah. So I think if you can bring that light quality to your day every day somehow, whether it's, with your friends or through your own, little things that you do, if you can keep that levity and keep that fun, that is the most important thing, because that's, I think that will always give you the motivation. That will always give you the motivation to do it, and to also remember to really to understand that whether you're in training or whether you're in a company, that whatever work you're doing, that's where the real journey is. So you always think that there's a finished product, but it's actually the present. What you're doing right now is that hard work, and knowing that it is what it is, that hard work will always be there, but that is exactly, you train hard so you can live, you can live in your art. And I think that's always an important thing to remember. So combining those two, that really hard work, but also remembering to never stop laughing, never stop having a good time, I think.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. And I can imagine we'll be seeing both of those elements when we all tune in for World Ballet Day and see you all doing your morning class and going through your rehearsals. So much looking forward to that. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your crazy schedule to talk with me today. I'm so excited to watch World Ballet Day and to see you behind the scenes. And for listeners, you can watch the Royal Ballet's live stream on their Facebook page, but also don't forget to get ready with the hashtag World Ballet Day. And for more information about what's happening at the Royal Opera House or the other companies, check out worldballetday.com or the Royal Opera House website and socials. And check out as well Beatriz's beautiful Instagram. I've been going through it. Clearly, you have, Beatriz, a love of fashion. I'm loving many of your outfits.
Thank you.
I have to say, but that could be an entirely long conversation just between us on this. So follow Beatriz at, and I'll spell this out because it's not just her name, at BSTIX_BRUNELL. So at BStix_Brunell. Thank you so much, Beatriz.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.